My 25th birthday party was supposed to be a celebration. The house was packed with relatives and friends, streamers and balloons crisscrossing the ceiling, the air thick with the smell of crisps and the buzz of chatter. I stood by the coffee table, waiting for my cake, genuinely excited in a way I hadn't felt in years. Then Lily appeared, carrying a tray. But instead of a birthday cake, there was a ceramic bowl filled with dry dog kibble. She held it up so everyone could see, her voice deliberately loud, "Here you go, happy birthday." The room erupted. People laughed, really laughed deep, delighted belly laughs. Lily doubled over, clutching her stomach, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. Then she looked at me, still grinning, and said, "Oh, come on. It's just a joke. You're not actually going to get upset, are you?" My face burned. My eyes stung, but I wasn't going to cry. I opened my mouth to say something, I don't know what, but before I could, my mother had already raised her phone and started filming. Her thumb was steady on the record button. No protest. No intervention. Just a screen between us, capturing every second of my humiliation. My father lounged on the sofa with a half smile, the kind you'd wear watching someone else's misfortune on a telly program. He tilted his head and delivered his lines with practiced ease. "Don't be so dramatic. You've always been too sensitive. Besides," he shrugged, as if stating an obvious fact, "you were never really entitled to anything better." My parents and my sister, together, in front of everyone. Not a single person spoke up. Not one. The laughter kept coming, and I stood there, paralyzed, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I forced myself to stay until the last guest left, then cleared the mess alone, my hands moving mechanically. Late that night, when the house finally went quiet, I sat at the dining table with a stack of envelopes. I wrote out addresses from memory, every single person who'd been in that room. I didn't write angry letters. I slipped a USB drive into each one, the video Lily had orchestrated, the audio of my parents' exact words. No commentary. Just the raw footage. I didn't sleep. By morning, my phone was unrecognizable. 53 missed calls. My screen glowed with notifications stacked so thickly I couldn't scroll to the bottom. Relatives. Classmates. People who'd laughed yesterday and now wanted to apologize, to explain, to distance themselves. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. They'd never considered my feelings. My pain was an inconvenience to be brushed aside. Now that the truth had its own life, they were scrambling. But I couldn't undo the feeling of standing in that room, surrounded by people I loved, while they chose to laugh. Dawn crept through the gap in the curtains, pale and indifferent. I sat up slowly, my body aching from the tension I'd been holding for hours. My phone lay face up on the mattress, 53 missed calls, a silent graveyard of guilt. My fingers trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was relief. The same choked relief you feel when you finally break the surface after nearly drowning. Downstairs, I could hear my mother moving around the kitchen. Dishes clinked. She was humming that same old tune she always hummed while making breakfast, cheerful and unbothered, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. I caught fragments of her voice, probably talking to my father, her tone light and ordinary. No one came up to check on me. No one knocked. No one offered an explanation. I swung my legs out of bed, my bare feet landing on the cold floorboards. At the window, the street below was waking up. A neighbor walked his golden retriever, and the dog recognized me, ears perked, tail wagging. I managed a small smile, just a twitch of my lips, then turned to the mirror above the sink. My reflection stared back, swollen eyelids, shadows under my eyes like bruises, but my gaze was steady. Flat. Like water that had already reached the bottom. My phone buzzed again. A text message, not a call. From Mia, my closest friend since university. She'd been there yesterday, perched on the arm of the sofa in the corner. She hadn't laughed. She hadn't said anything either. "Are you okay? I need to see you." I typed back, "Okay." We met at the 24-hour cafe around the corner, the one with the creaky door and mismatched chairs. Mia was already there, sitting by the window, 2 cold coffees in front of her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. When she saw me, she shot up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "I'm so sorry," she blurted, voice cracking. "I should have said something last night. I froze. I didn't know what to do." I sat down, pulled one of the cold coffees toward me, and took a sip. Bitter, slightly acidic. "You don't need to apologize. But your mum," she grabbed my hand, her fingers were ice cold. "What she said to you, you were never entitled to anything better, that's vile. You've worked harder than anyone I know. You got into the best university, supported yourself through every year of it, and she..." "Mia." I gently freed my hand and placed it over hers. I know all of it." She finally stopped, pulled out a tissue, and blew her nose loudly. After a long moment, she asked, "So what are you going to do?" I looked out the window. The street was starting to fill with morning commuters, their faces blank with routine. "First," I said, "I'm making sure everyone sees what she said." "What Lily did?" Mia blinked. "But you already." "I sent the USBs to the guests. But there are people who weren't there. My colleagues. Dad's distant cousins. Lily's boyfriend." Her eyes widened. She understood. This wasn't just about embarrassing the people in that room. This was about tearing down the entire facade. "Will you regret it?" she asked. I thought about it. "The only thing I regret," I said, "is spending 25 years believing that if I just kept quiet, things would get better." The cafe door swung open, bell jingling. I looked up, and there he was, Oliver, Lily's boyfriend. He clearly hadn't expected to see me here. He froze mid-step, 2 paper bags of takeaway breakfast dangling from his hands. His expression cycled through surprise, embarrassment, and finally settled on a kind of wary caution. "Ella," he said, his voice lower than usual. I didn't respond. He came over slowly, sat down opposite Mia, and set the bags on the table. He hesitated for a long time before speaking. "Lily was up all night crying." "Right," I said. "She knows she went too far." He was fidgeting, his fingers restless against the paper bag. "But she didn't think you'd actually send those videos out. Now her phone hasn't stopped ringing. Her mum, your aunt, called this morning and tore into her for half an hour. Said she'd embarrassed the whole family." I put my coffee down. The cup hit the saucer with a sharp clink. "She didn't think," I repeated. She stood in front of 30 people, handed me a bowl of dog food, and laughed. She said I didn't deserve anything better. And she didn't think anyone would feel humiliated. Oliver flushed. She thought it was funny. She's always had a stupid sense of humor, you know how she is." "No," I said quietly. "I don't know. Because for 25 years, every time she just thought it was funny, I was the one who ended up crying. When she cut up my dolls at 6, just giving them a haircut. When she drew all over my homework at 10, just decorating. When she told my crush at 15 that I drooled in my sleep and snored, she was just joking. And every single time, everyone told me she meant no harm." Oliver opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mia's voice cut in, cold and sharp. "Funny? Handing your sister dog food on her birthday isn't funny. It's cruel." Oliver stood up so fast his chair scraped again. He stared at me, breathing hard, then seemed to deflate all at once. He sat back down, dropped his head into his hands, and spoke through his fingers, muffled. "What do you want me to do? Break up with her? Cut her off completely?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Outside, the sun was already harsh, bleaching the pavement. I walked without direction, my phone buzzing relentlessly in my pocket. I ignored it. At a flower shop, I stopped a display of white eustomas in the window, their petals layered and impossibly clean. I went in and bought a bunch, cradling them like they might anchor me to something solid. My mother's voice came through as a voice note. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her tone was frayed, frantic. "You need to take those videos down now. Do you hear me? We're a family. We sort things out quietly. You want everyone to see us as a joke. Your father's blood pressure has spiked, his in a bad way. Lily's eyes are swollen from crying, and you can't even, what's wrong with you?" I slipped the phone back into my pocket and kept walking. When I got home, the living room had been scrubbed clean. No streamers, no balloons. The coffee table held a neat plate of cut fruit. My mother sat on the sofa, and when she saw me, she arranged her face into something softer. "You're back," she said. "Come have some fruit. Your father went for a walk, and Lily's in her room." I didn't move. I stood in the hallway, exchanging my shoes for slippers, resting the eustomas on the shoe rack. "Mum," I said. "You filmed me yesterday." Her expression flickered. "That was, I wanted to capture the moment, so you could look back. You filmed me being humiliated." My voice was level. "You didn't stop Lily. You filmed me standing there, my eyes red, trying not to break down. Who did you send it to?" She was quiet for a few seconds, her gaze skittering away. "No one, just the family WhatsApp group." The family group. 43 people. I closed my eyes, then opened them again, and when I spoke, I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "So you told the whole group I didn't deserve better, and then you filmed my worst moment and shared it. And then you called me heartless." My mother's mouth opened and closed. Then she slapped the armrest, her patience gone. "So what do you want? Your sister has apologized, your father is ill, and you're still going on about this. Do you even have any sense of family?" "Family," I echoed. "Mum, when you pressed record yesterday, did you actually think about whether I might be hurting?" She couldn't answer. Footsteps on the stairs. Lily came down, her eyes swollen into slits, her hair a tangled mess. She was still in her pajamas, pale and hollow-looking. She stopped on the last step, saw me, and burst into loud, hiccuping sobs. "Ella," she lurched toward me, arms out, but I stepped sideways. She stumbled, grabbed the arm of the sofa for balance, and kept crying, her words broken up. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I messed up, please don't hate me, please." My mother rushed to hold her, rubbing her back, murmuring, "It's all right, she just needs a minute, she's just upset." I watched from the doorway. Sunlight streamed in through the window, catching dust motes suspended in the air. Beneath the faint sweetness of leftover cake lingered the sharp chemical tang of floor cleaner. "Lily," I said. "You're 23. She looked up, still hiccuping. A 23-year-old woman brought a bowl of dog food to her sister's birthday party and announced it as her cake. Then you cried, and everyone came to comfort you. That's how it's always been. You mess up, you cry, and I get told I'm not being understanding enough." Lily's sobs subsided. She stared at me, tears still clinging to her lashes, but something was shifting in her face, something I'd never seen before. Maybe fear. Maybe frustration. Maybe both. "Those letters," she said, her voice hoarse. "You sent the video to everyone. Aunt Margaret called me, said I'd brought shame on the whole family. Uncle James told me not to come to his house anymore. Even Oliver's mum, she said she needs to reconsider our engagement plans." Her voice rose. "Do you have any idea how much you've destroyed? Any idea how much you've destroyed?" I threw her words straight back. She flinched, her face flushing with color. My mother stepped in, voice shrill, "Enough. Both of you. Lily, go back to your room. Ella, you need to calm down. We're a family. A family." I cut her off. "Mum, you said I didn't deserve anything better. So tell me, do I deserve a decent family?" My mother went still. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock, each second falling like a stone. I bent down, picked up my eustomas, and turned toward the front door. The light outside was blazing, and I had to squint against it. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, Lily's crying, and my father returning through the back door, demanding to know what had happened now. I didn't look back. The door shut behind me, and the world went quiet. I walked for a long time, aimlessly. My phone eventually stopped buzzing, then started again. This time, the caller ID showed an unknown number. I answered. A woman's voice, polite and careful. "Is this Ms. Ella Davies?" "Yes. I'm calling from the London Chronicle. My name is Williams. We've received an anonymous submission containing video and audio footage related to your family, and we wanted to verify." I stopped walking, standing in the shade of a large plane tree. Anonymous submission. I hadn't sent anything to the press. The USBs had gone only to the guests who were at the party. But once something's out there, you can't control where it goes. Sorry, I said, could you clarify? What submission? A pause, the rustle of papers. A video of what appears to be a birthday party, and an audio clip in which a woman says, "You were never entitled to anything better. Ms. Davies, is this your birthday party? Would you be willing to comment?" I leaned against the trunk, looking up through the canopy of leaves, dappled light shifting across my face. I almost laughed. Almost cried. 25 years of trying to hold this family together, and it all ended up splintered in broad daylight anyway. "Mr. Williams," I said, "I'm not ready to give an interview. But if you could tell me who sent the submission, I'd appreciate it." A pause. "I'm afraid we can't disclose that information." "Then please pass along a message for me," I said. "Whoever it was, thank them." I hung up, stared at the eustomas in my arms. Their petals trembled slightly in the breeze. I ran through the list of everyone who'd been there yesterday, cousins who'd laughed the loudest, the aunt who'd filmed it on her phone, the uncle who'd stood in the corner smirking. Or maybe it had been Mia. I shook my head. It didn't matter. The fire was already spreading, and it was burning hotter than anything I'd have lit myself. By mid-afternoon, I was back at my own flat, the one I'd rented after university, 40 minutes on the tube from my parents' house. 2 bedrooms, modest but mine. The first thing I did was switch off my phone and leave it on the coffee table. Then I took the longest shower I could manage. The water was scalding. Under the spray, I remembered a summer when I was 7 or 8, Lily maybe 6. We were playing in the garden with water guns, and hers broke. She ran inside crying, told our mother I'd smashed it on purpose. My mother smacked my palm and made me stand in the sun for an hour. Lily watched from the window, grinning, sticking out her tongue. That night, my father passed me in the hallway and muttered, "You deserved it. You know better than to upset your sister." I deserved it. That was the chorus of my childhood. Good grades. Deserved to be envied. Teacher's pet. Deserved to be mocked. A decent job. Deserved to be dismissed as lucky. A breakup. Deserved it, because I was too quiet, too reserved, too difficult to love. I turned off the tap and stood in the steam, wiping a patch of the fogged mirror. My reflection stared back, wet hair plastered to my cheeks, red-rimmed eyes, but my mouth was set in a straight line. The last message on my phone before I'd switched it off had been from my father. 7 words, "I expected better from you." I pulled on a robe, padded barefoot to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. Outside, the city was settling into twilight, lights flickering on in windows across the street. A distant hum of traffic, low and constant, like the world's endless mutter. I remembered my first real paycheck, age 20, £230. I'd bought my mother a scarf, my father a pair of slippers, Lily a lipstick. My mother had folded the scarf into her wardrobe and said the color was a bit matronly. My father had tried the slippers and said they were the wrong size. Lily had swiped the lipstick across her hand, wrinkled her nose, and announced the shade was so last season. They hadn't meant to be cruel. They just didn't know how to accept anything from me, because they'd already decided I didn't have anything worth giving. I sat on the sofa, cradling my water, looking at the eustomas on the coffee table. Their white petals glowed softly in the dim light, as if they belonged to a different world entirely. I don't know how long I sat there before the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Mia, her face pinched with worry, a carrier bag in her hand. I opened the door and she pushed past me before I could speak. "You turned off your phone, I've been going out of my mind." She dumped the bag on the kitchen counter, 2 takeaway containers of pasta and a small bottle of vinegar. "I knew you wouldn't have eaten." Then she pulled out her phone and held up the screen. It was a social media feed. A video already shared over 1,000 times. The thumbnail was unmistakable: my birthday party, the balloons, the cake table, me looking expectant. The caption was sensational: "Sister's cruel birthday prank leaves family shamed, parents laugh along." I tapped play. The quality was shaky, clearly filmed from someone's phone, angled slightly downward. But the audio was clear, Lily walking in, the laughter, my father's voice cutting through. The comments section had exploded, some calling Lily a monster, others directing their anger at my parents, a few insisting the video must be fake. These weren't in my envelope, I said. I recorded from a different angle. Mia peered closer. Then who filmed this? There were so many people there, someone must have been recording the whole thing. I scrolled through the comments. One stood out. I went to school with the older sister. She was always being bullied by her younger sister. One time the little one threw her bag in the fountain and the mum blamed the older girl for not watching her own stuff. The replies kept stacking up. My name wasn't mentioned, but the details narrowed it down fast. Davies, birthday, dog food. In a city this size, it wouldn't take long before someone who knew me recognized the context. I handed the phone back to Mia and opened one of the pasta containers. Steam hit my face. Are you not angry? She demanded. Someone deliberately leaked this, you're being dragged all over the internet. Of course I'm angry. I twirled a forkful of pasta, took a bite, sweet tomato sauce, sharp cheese, hot enough to burn. But I'm angrier that it happened because some guest filmed it, not because I chose to share it. I thought I could handle this quietly, just between us. Now half the country knows. Mia sat down across from me. What are you going to do? Your family must have seen this by now. Her phone lit up. She glanced at it, then winced. It's your mum. I took the call before she could argue. My mother's voice erupted, shrill with panic. Mia? Is Ella there? Put her on. Ella, you get back here now. Do you have any idea what's happening? Aunt Margaret just called, said it's all over her Facebook feed. Are you trying to destroy this family? Is that what you want? I let her run out of steam. Then I said, calmly, Mum, I didn't post that video. What do you mean? Those envelopes you sent out. The envelopes had USBs in them. But the video that's online was filmed by someone else. The angle's different. Look closely, you'll see. Silence on the line. When my mother spoke again, the outrage had drained out, replaced by something fragile. Then who? I don't know, I said. But Mum, this isn't just about us anymore. When you filmed me yesterday, did you think it might come to this? She didn't answer. Then, in a voice I'd rarely heard from her, weary, almost broken, she said, Ella, come home. Please. We need to figure out how to handle this. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof, he's been in bed all day with a migraine. Lily won't stop crying, and Oliver's mother called, said she wants to rethink everything. I chewed, swallowed, and said, Mum. None of this would have happened if yesterday had gone differently. She hung up first. Mia watched me nervously. Are you okay? I took another bite of pasta. This is really good. Thank you. She opened her mouth, closed it, and just squeezed my shoulder. I didn't go back to my parents' house that night. Mia crashed on my sofa. I lay in bed, restless, until finally I gave up and checked my phone again. Messages flooded in, relatives, old classmates, colleagues. Most asked if the video was real. A few offered concern. A handful, presumably Lily's friends, asked how I could expose my own family like that. I marked everything as read. Then I went back to the platform where the video had been posted. The share count had already passed 10,000. The comments had shifted from shock to outright fury, people digging into my parents' workplaces, speculating about their addresses, someone even suggesting a visit to confront them. My stomach turned. I filed a privacy complaint with the platform and shut the app. I broke out in a cold sweat. I'd wanted to teach them a lesson, yes. I'd wanted my parents and Lily to feel exposed, humiliated. But I'd never intended for a mob to form. Some comments were vicious. These people shouldn't be parents. The sister needs to be locked up. Someone had even suggested doxing them. I turned onto my side, staring into the darkness. But I couldn't escape the echoes, Lily's laughter, the guests howling, my father's cutting indifference, the shutter click of my mother's phone. Ella. My mother had chosen that name because she wanted me to be graceful and kind. She'd never treated my feelings with either. I don't know when I finally drifted off. I dreamed I was back at the party, surrounded by laughing faces. Streamers rained down, clinging to my hair and shoulders, sticky and light. I looked down at the plate in my hands. It held a bowl of dog food, damp and grainy. When I looked up, my mother was filming again, her screen reflecting my distorted face. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I woke with a damp patch on my pillow. The next morning, I made 3 decisions. 1. Take the week off work. 2. See a lawyer about privacy and defamation, so I could limit the damage being done to my family even if I still hated them. I didn't want anyone actually getting hurt. 3. Call Oliver. He answered on the first ring. Ella. How's Lily? I asked. A pause, then a hollow laugh. Not great. Your aunt, her mum, came by this morning and tore into her. Called her brainless, said she'd dragged the whole family through mud. She's locked herself in her room again. Are you two over? No. He hesitated. But my mum's not taking it well. She saw the video, said Lily's got a vicious streak, her exact words. Vicious streak. That carried weight from a future mother-in-law. I held the phone, unsure whether I felt vindicated or sorry. Lily was my sister. We'd grown up in the same house, under the same parents, same warped silences. She was cruel to me, but she was also shaped by the same crooked mold. Oliver, I said. The video online wasn't me, and it wasn't Lily. Someone at the party filmed it and posted it without my permission. Tell her that. Tell her that crying and hiding won't fix it. If she's really sorry, she needs to do something about it. Long silence. Then, I'll tell her. I hung up, got dressed, and went outside. The sunlight was sharp and forgiving. A fry-up shop on the corner was doing a brisk trade, the smell of frying fish and chips trailing. Down the pavement. I queued, bought 2 portions and a coffee, ate standing up, watching the ordinary lives around me. No one paid me any attention. It was oddly comforting. The lawyer, a brisk woman in her 40s named Ms. Smith, reviewed the original footage on my phone and nodded. Ms. Davies, if these spread further, they'll damage your family's reputation, but they'll also expose your own privacy. I'd recommend not releasing anything publicly. If the platform's video shows your face, we can demand removal. I've already filed a complaint, I said. But I never posted anything, someone else did. Then that person is liable for violating your image rights. The platform should provide the uploader's details eventually, though if they're using an unregistered account, it may take time. I left the office, squinting at the bright advertisements on the building opposite. Somewhere out there, the person who'd filmed that video was watching all of this unfold. Maybe they were laughing. Maybe they were panicking. At lunchtime, Mia messaged me, a new post, from Lily's public account. I tapped through and found a photo of Lily, her face tear-streaked, eyes puffy, with a caption beneath it. I'm Lily. I know nothing I say can undo what happened, but I want to say it anyway. I'm sorry. What I did wasn't funny, it was cruel. I've been spoiled my whole life, and I believed my sister would always forgive me, no matter what I did. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Ella. And I'm sorry to everyone else caught up in this. I'm not going to make excuses. The comments were split, some praising her for apologizing, others dismissing it as crocodile tears. I stared at the post for a long time, remembering the time I'd been sick as a child and Lily had sneaked her saved pocket money into my school bag, with a scrawled note, for medicine. I'd kept that note, folded between the pages of an old textbook. We had loved each other once. When did that change? Maybe when our parents first favored her, and she learned to exploit that favor. Or when I first swallowed my anger, and she learned that there were no consequences. I liked her post. Then I switched off my phone and went home. The house was empty. The fruit had been cleared from the coffee table, replaced by a few printed pages covered in my mother's handwriting, scrawled, overwritten, messy. A draft of a public statement. The video circulating online was taken out of context. The family has resolved its internal issues amicably. Please refrain from further sharing or speculation. There was a blank space at the bottom for my father's signature. I read through it carefully. It was all damage control, all appeasement. Not a single word of reflection or apology. My mother came down the stairs, caught sight of me, and stopped. She was wearing an old jumper, her hair loose and untidy, her face older than I remembered. She crossed to the armchair opposite me, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. "You don't need this statement," I said. "I've already asked the platform to take the video down." She looked up, something complicated in her eyes. "The letters, then, the USBs you sent, can you get them back?" "No." I shook my head. "But the people who received them are mostly family. They won't share them. The online video came from someone else." She nodded, still gripping her own hands. After a moment, she said, "Your father went back to the hospital this morning. His blood pressure's too high. They're keeping him in for a few days." "How serious is it?" "Not critical. But he needs rest." She hesitated. "He saw the comments on that video. Someone called him a disgrace. He didn't handle it well." My chest tightened. My father, cold, sarcastic, unreachable, but still my father. I'd spent my whole life afraid of him, and my whole life wanting his approval. And now he was ill, and I hadn't even known until now. "I'll go see him this afternoon," I said. My mother's head snapped up. Relief flickered across her face. "Good. Yes. I'll come with you. I'll heat up something for you to eat first." "Mum." She stopped. "Say it to me," I said. "Apologize." The room grew very still. Sunlight angled through the window, falling across the grey at her temples. Her lips parted, closed, opened again. I thought she might refuse. I thought we might sit in silence until the sun moved and the moment dissolved. Then she said, very quietly, a single word scraping out of her throat, "Sorry." She didn't meet my eyes. She turned and walked into the kitchen, her shoulders hunched. I sat there, holding the pages of the failed statement, feeling the divots left by her pen pressed into the paper. The eustomas on the windowsill were already opening, their petals soft and white. My phone buzzed. "Ms. Smith, the platform has traced the uploader's IP address. It's local. We're requesting further details. Also, the registered phone number associated with the account starts with 138. And the name on it is someone named White." I stared at the screen. White. Memory flipped backwards. Yesterday, at the cafe, Mia apologizing, Oliver walking in, Oliver sitting down, Oliver defending Lily. Of all the guests named White, who'd been in the right position? Who'd had the opportunity? Oliver White. But I dismissed the thought almost immediately. Oliver was Lily's boyfriend. Why would he film her humiliating herself and post it online? Unless he hadn't meant to film her at all, unless he'd been filming something else, and had caught the scene by accident. I remembered his expression at the cafe, the fluster, the quick exit. His shoulders hunched, like he was ducking something. I put the phone away. I'd find out eventually. At the hospital, I bought a basket of fruit and a bunch of carnations. My father was in a 3-bed ward, by the window. The curtain was half drawn, softening the light. He was propped against the pillows, pale and slack, and 4 taped to the back of his hand. When I walked in, he turned his head toward the window. I set the fruit down and put the flowers in the empty vase on his bedside table. "Dad," I said. He didn't answer. But he didn't look away, either. He stared at the ceiling, his throat bobbing. I sat down on the edge of the chair beside him, hands resting on my knees, looking down at my own fingers. "I'm not going to ask you to apologize. But I need you to know that what you said hurt." Silence stretched. I thought he might leave me hanging. Then, in a low, rough voice, he spoke, "That wasn't what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He frowned, choosing his words with difficulty. "You've always been strong. You carried things alone. You never told us when you were struggling. Your sister, she's different. She runs to us for everything. I'm not saying you're bad, I'm just." His voice broke. He covered his face with the hand that wasn't strapped to the fore. I watched him. The man who'd dominated every corner of my childhood, now lying here, diminished. It was the first time I'd ever seen him look fragile. "Dad," I said quietly. "Take it back." He shifted his hand, revealing reddened eyes. Take back what you said. That I didn't deserve anything better. My voice was soft but unyielding. Take it back. He stared at me. The curtains swayed in a breeze from the open window, light rippling across the bedsheets. The machines beeped in slow, steady rhythm. Take it back, I repeated. He swallowed, and finally, his voice scraped out, I take it back. My eyes burned, but I kept them dry. I stood, smoothed the corner of his sheet, and said, get some rest. I'll come tomorrow. At the door, my mother touched my arm, her own eyes wet. She didn't say anything, just squeezed my elbow. Outside, the sun hit me full in the face, that familiar, gritty warmth of early summer. I stood on the hospital steps and breathed deeply, something in my chest starting to loosen. My phone buzzed. Oliver. I answered. His voice was urgent. Ella, Lily's gone. Gone where? She texted me this morning, said she needed to be alone. Now she's not answering. I've been to her house. Her mum said she left early, no bag, just her phone. I've checked everywhere I can think of, she's not. I gripped the phone tighter. What did her text actually say? Just, Oliver, I'm sorry. To you, to Ella. Don't come looking for me. I closed my eyes. The light through my lids was orange, pulsing. I could feel the weight of that moment pressing down on me. But I opened my eyes and forced my voice steady. The footbridge, the one near our old school. She used to go there when she was upset. Oliver sounded frantic. I already checked. Then let me think. I was already moving, my feet carrying me toward the tube station. I ran through possibilities in my head, the old hill behind our grandparents' house, where she'd once buried a dead sparrow, the bubble tea shop near the school, where she'd downed 3 drinks in a row after a bad breakup. And then, the cemetery. My grandmother. She'd been gone 3 years now. Lily had adored her. Whenever she got in trouble at home, she'd run to Grandma's, and Grandma would just stroke her hair and say, my sweet girl. The day Grandma died, Lily had wailed for hours. Every anniversary, she went to the grave alone. I flagged a taxi. Brompton Cemetery, please. The driver nodded, and we were off. 40 minutes, the city dissolving into suburbs, then into green. The cemetery was set on a low hill at the western edge, a long avenue of pines leading up to rows of grey headstones. I found Lily at our grandmother's grave. She was curled on the stone steps, a tiny heap of limbs and tangled hair, her face blotched with tears. When she heard my footsteps, she looked up, stiffened, and then let out a sob so raw it seemed to tear her open. Ella, she lunged at me, arms locked around my neck, weeping into my shoulder. I didn't mean for any of this, I'm so stupid. I was jealous, I'm always so jealous of you. Her words came out broken and wet. You have everything, you've always had everything, good grades, good job, friends who love you. Oliver, the first time he saw you, he said you were beautiful and I'm nothing next to you, and the only way I could feel like I mattered was when I made you feel small. I stood frozen, her weight against me, her tears soaking through my shirt. Our grandmother's headstone loomed in front of us, her photograph etched into the marble, that familiar gentle smile watching over everything. Slowly, I lifted my hand and touched Lily's back. You were jealous of me. My voice came out rough. You got all the love, you got praised, protected, bailed out every time you messed up, and you were jealous of me. She shook her head frantically against my shoulder. They loved me, but they never believed I could be anything. They only talked about you, how good you were, how smart, how far you'd go. No matter what I did, I was never enough. They'd scold you, but deep down, they thought you were better. The only time they ever took my side was when I made you look bad. That was the only time I felt special. I went very still. I'd never imagined Lily could think this way. In my eyes, she'd had everything. In hers, I'd had everything. We were mirrors, each seeing the other's light and ignoring our own shadows. I pushed her back gently, tilting her chin up. What was I to you? I asked. A tool? Something to use so you could get what you wanted? She shook her head, sobbing. I didn't know how to be your sister. I don't know how to be close to you. It's been like this forever. You held back, I pushed, and we never talked. I don't know how to be your friend. Her voice cracked on the last word. I looked at her, 23, still so young, still trying to find her footing. In this family, she'd been the favorite, but she'd also been trapped in that role, just as I'd been trapped in mine. I turned away from her and knelt at the headstone, brushing the fallen pine needles from the base. If our grandmother were here, what would she say? I closed my eyes, and I could almost hear her voice, slow, wise, always patient. Sisters will quarrel their whole lives, and in the end, they'll still be sisters. Lily, I said without turning around. Oliver's looking for you. Call him. She fumbled for her phone, hands trembling, and managed to dial. She only got out "I'm fine" before the tears started again, but I could hear Oliver's voice on the other end, rapid and worried, the tension bleeding out as he spoke. I walked a few steps away, giving her space. The pine avenue was quiet, the wind lifting the needles into a soft hush. I looked up at the sky, grey-blue clouds, and behind them, fragile threads of gold. Eventually, Lily came over. Her face was still a mess, but she was calmer. "He's coming," she said. "Good." A pause. Then she said, "Ella, I'm sorry. Really. I know. I mean it." She scuffed her shoe against the gravel. "What I did, it wasn't a joke. It was cruel. I saw you standing there, so happy, and I thought, I want to tear that apart. I knew it would hurt. I did it anyway." I studied her profile, the familiar curve of her jaw, the soft roundness of her face. We had the same blood, the same parents, the same twisted family dynamics. "Will you do it again?" I asked. She shook her head violently. "Never. I swear. On everything." I didn't reply. She looked stricken, rushed on, "Ella, look at me. If I ever do this again, may I never find anyone who loves me." I laughed despite myself. "If you want to swear, swear on something that matters to me. If you do it again, that limited edition lipstick of mine is yours." She blinked, then laughed through her tears. She tried to hug me again. I held her off with a hand. "You're going to get snot on me." She stepped back, grinning wetly. The wind tangled her hair again, and she shoved it out of her face with both hands, looking young and raw and somehow less broken. Oliver arrived in his little white car, tires crunching on gravel. He ran over, looked from Lily to me, and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "Thank you," he said to me, directly. "Thank you, Ella." "Take her home," I said. "Get her some food. Don't let her hole up alone." He nodded and guided Lily back toward the car. She looked over her shoulder at me. "Are you coming?" "Later. I want to stay a little longer." She got in, and the car rolled back down the avenue, disappearing around the bend. I stood on the hill, watching the rear lights blink until they were gone. Then I went back to my grandmother's grave and sat down on the stone steps. The marble was cool beneath me, the sun warm on my knees. I traced my fingers over her photograph. "What do I do, Grandma?" I whispered. The wind answered, stirring the pine branches, nothing more. But I stayed there, letting the minutes pass, until the sun began to slant and the shadows grew long behind me. Then I got up, brushed the dust from my trousers, and walked. At the cemetery gate, I pulled out my phone and messaged my mother, "Found Lily. Oliver took her home. I'll be back later." She replied instantly, "Good. Your dad ate some porridge, feeling better. Stay safe. Stay safe." She'd never said that to me before, only ever to Lily. I stared at the words, then pocketed the phone and kept walking. The bus was nearly empty. I took a seat at the back by the window, watching the city scroll past in slow frames. Mia texted, "Heard you found her. Everything okay?" "Fine. Good." Also, the platform got back to me about the uploader. It was registered with a virtual number, can't trace the identity, but the geotag puts it around the Cambridge area. "Anyone you know there?" "Cambridge." A name surfaced, Charlotte. My cousin. She'd been at the party, sitting near the balcony, her phone often in her hand. She and Lily were close, always whispering at family gatherings. But she and I were civil, nothing more. Why would she? Another message, from an unknown number. "Ella, it's Charlotte. The video online, I posted it. I'm so sorry." I thought I was just recording for my own reference, but a friend of mine reshared it without my permission, and by the time I saw, it had already blown up. I've deleted the original and requested a takedown. Please believe me. I stared at the screen. Charlotte, the quiet one, always scrolling on her phone. Of course. Why? I asked. Her reply came fast. When Lily brought the dog food out, your mum was filming, your dad was laughing, everyone was laughing, and you were just standing there, trying to hold it together. I'd known you for 25 years and never seen you look like that. I wanted to keep it, to remind myself never to treat anyone that way. I never meant for it to go public. I leaned against the window, watching the city lights smear into rivers of gold. The day before, at the cafe, Mia had asked what I planned to do, and I'd said I'd share the truth wider. Someone else had done it for me, with far more reach. Don't worry, Charlotte. I won't pursue it. She sent a string of crying emojis and a long series of apologies. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. The engine droned, a low, steady hum. Today had been so long, from Lily's disappearance to the cemetery, from my father's hospital bed to Charlotte's confession. One thing after another, piling up until I thought I might break. But beneath it all, something was shifting. Maybe it was my father taking back his words. Maybe it was my mother's quiet apology. Maybe it was Lily saying out loud what she'd never said before. Maybe it was just that wind on the hillside, moving through the pines, carrying the scent of grass and earth. Home, at the end of the day. The front light was on, and my mother stood in the doorway, holding a mug of warm water. She saw me and her face relaxed. You're back. I've got dinner warm. I took the mug, letting the warmth seep through the ceramic. The house smelled of food, simple, home-cooked. My father was still in hospital. Lily was with Oliver. It was just my mother in the kitchen, bustling between stove and table. She was heating my meal. I stood in the hall, watching her move, and suddenly I was 8 years old again, soaked from a summer thunderstorm, huddled on the sofa with a fever. She'd brought me ginger tea, scolding me for not finding shelter, but her hand had been cool against my forehead, her voice soft. When had those soft things turned sharp? When had we pushed each other away? I crossed to the table. She set a bowl of steaming broth in front of me, clear, with a few goji berries floating at the surface. I drank, and the heat moved down my throat, settling in my chest. Mum, I said. I'll visit Dad tomorrow. You rest. She turned away quickly, touching her eye with her sleeve. All right, she said, her voice rough. That night, I slept in my old room. The sheets smelled of sunlight. A glass of water and a note on the bedside table, heating's set. Extra blanket in the wardrobe. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Lily's room was empty, but she'd sent me a photo, her and Oliver at a takeaway stall, her face still blotchy but her thumb up, grinning. Oliver says I shouldn't eat spicy food when I'm upset, but I don't listen to him. I sent back a smiley face. Then I closed my eyes, and sleep pulled me under. The days that followed slid into a strange, tentative rhythm. I went back to work, and to my surprise, it wasn't as awkward as I'd feared. The video had been taken down, but digital memories are like watermarks, faint but lingering. Some co-workers avoided eye contact, some went out of their way to be normal. My manager, Mr. Thompson, made a point of addressing the whole team. Personal matters stay outside these doors. If I hear anyone gossiping about a colleague's private life, their next performance review will reflect it. No one mentioned my name. But everyone knew. I started therapy with a woman named Sophie. She had a round face and short hair, and she spoke in a way that made the hardest truths feel manageable. You don't have to decide anything right now, she said during our first session. You can just watch. Let things unfold. See if their actions match their apologies. The word stuck with me, watch. I started watching. At dinner, I'd sit back and observe how my mother filled Lily's bowl first, how my father finally started asking about my work, not as an interrogation, but as genuine interest. Small gestures, but I noticed them. I kept my notebook, the one with Lily's childhood note and the dried flower from Charlotte's shop. I started writing in it every night, little observations, nothing profound. Today Dad asked if I'd eaten properly. Lily saved me the last slice of cake. Mum bought the expensive apples, the ones I like. It wasn't forgiveness. It was just watching. Summer pressed on, hot and thick. I got busier at work, often coming home late. But there was always something waiting, a bowl of soup, a slice of cake, a note taped to the fridge. One evening in late July, my father suggested we take a walk together. He'd been ordered to exercise more, and for once, he didn't grumble. We went down to the river path, the one that wound past the old bridge where he used to take me fishing. "Remember this place?" he asked, pausing on the bridge. I looked down at the slow-moving water. I remember a little red fish. I wanted to keep it as a pet. He smiled, a rare, fleeting expression. Brought it home in a bucket. It died the next morning. You cried for hours. We stood in silence for a while, watching the water. Then he said, "I can't take back what I've said. I know that. But if you're willing, I can stop saying things like that." I nodded, my throat tight. "Okay." We walked the length of the path and back. The river glittered in the afternoon light. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Dad said he'll try." Autumn crept in, and so did an unexpected sense of steadiness. Lily and I started a Sunday tradition: no parents, no boyfriends, just us. We tried new cafes, went to see bad movies, sat on park benches with takeaway cups and talked about nothing. She told me about her frustrations at work. I told her about a difficult project. We argued over which band was better, and she kicked me under the table, and I kicked her back, and somewhere in the middle of it, we were laughing. One Sunday in September, she showed up at my flat with a carrier bag and a nervous expression. "I have something," she said, pulling out a small framed photograph. It was our grandmother, sitting in the garden, wearing that familiar broad-brimmed hat, laughing at something off camera. "I found it in Mum's old box," Lily said. "I thought you might want it." I took the frame, running my fingers over the edge. Grandma's laugh seemed to echo in the room. "Thanks," I said. Lily shrugged, but she looked pleased. "I have one too. We can match." We put the photograph on my windowsill, and it stayed there, beside the notebook, beside the dried flower, beside all the other fragments of rebuilding. October came, and with it, my mother's birthday. She didn't expect anything, she'd never been one for celebrations, but Lily and I organized a small dinner. My father helped me set the table. Lily brought a store-bought cake, lopsided but cheerful. My mother, when she saw it, looked like she might cry. She didn't, though. She just sat down, blew out the candles, and when Lily asked what she'd wished for, she said, "I think you already know." We laughed. We ate. The evening wore on, comfortable and warm. I still go to therapy. I still write in my notebook. Some days are harder than others. I hear an echo of my father's words, or I see Lily's smirk in a new context, and the old anger rears up. But I've learned to sit with it, to let it pass without letting it control me. Sophie asked me recently, "How would you describe your relationship with your family now?" I thought about it. "Work in progress," I said. She smiled. "That's honest." I've made peace with the fact that it might always be a work in progress. We can't erase what's happened. But we've all started trying, and that, I think, is the only way forward. The other day, Lily came to visit. She found me at my desk, writing, and she sat on the edge of my bed, waiting. When I finished, she asked, "What do you write in there?" "Just things," I said. "Memories. Notes." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you ever write about me?" I looked at her, her face open, curious, uncertain. "Sometimes," I said. "Mostly the good stuff." She grinned, and the grin was so much like our grandmother's that my chest tightened. But the feeling wasn't painful. It was warm, like coming in from a cold day and finding the kettle just starting to boil. "Good," she said. "Make sure you only write the good stuff." I laughed. "No promises." She threw a pillow at my head, and I threw it back, and the room filled with the sound of us laughing, ordinary, imperfect, alive. It's not a perfect family. It's not a perfect life. But it's mine, and I'm learning how to hold it without breaking. Autumn deepened, and the plane trees outside the window shifted from gold to russet, their leaves spinning down in drifts along the pavement. One evening in late October, I came home from work to find Lily crouched on the front steps, clutching an envelope, her expression odd. When she saw me, she stood up, brushed the dust off her trousers, and handed it over. "What's this?" I took it, glancing at the sender, the South City Evening Post, the address handwritten in neat, elegant script. "Open it," she said, chewing her lip. I tore open the flap and pulled out a single folded sheet of paper. It was a brief letter from the journalist who'd contacted me before, Ms. Williams. She wrote that after the anonymous submission incident, she'd been following the story, and she'd recently completed a feature on family relationships and online harm. She was hoping I might agree to a formal interview, to share my own experience and reflections. The last line read, "If you're willing, your story could give others strength, with your privacy fully protected." I stood in the doorway, the letter in my hand, and said nothing. Lily peered over my shoulder, then ventured carefully, "I think you should do it." I looked up at her. She shifted her weight, her fingers twisting together. "After what I did, the whole country saw the worst of us. But then Mum apologized, Dad changed, and I changed too. If you could tell people that it's possible to get better, even after something that awful, that's not nothing, is it?" I stared at her for a long moment, then let out a surprised laugh. "Since when did you get so good with words?" "I've always been good with words. You just never listened." She said it with perfect conviction, then tugged my sleeve. "Think about it. You don't have to decide right now." That night, I sat alone in my room and read Ms. Williams' letter 3 times over. Outside, the autumn night was quiet and still, streetlight filtering through the bare branches and scattering dappled shadows across my desk. I thought back to that birthday party 3 months ago, the laughter, the 53 missed calls, my father's red-rimmed eyes in the hospital bed, Lily sobbing at our grandmother's grave. Seen from this distance, those images didn't cut quite as sharply. The edges had softened with time, but the outlines remained clear. I emailed Ms. Williams back the next morning, saying I'd agree to an interview on 2 conditions, anonymity, and the right to review the piece before publication. She replied within hours, agreeing without hesitation, and we set a date for the following week at a cafe near her office. The day of the interview, I wore a simple grey jumper, tied my hair back, and put on a touch of makeup enough to look presentable without trying too hard. Ms. Williams was a woman in her early 30s, with short hair and a round, friendly face. Her voice was soft and unhurried. We settled into a quiet corner, she ordered a latte, I asked for a cup of tea. She placed a small recorder on the table and asked, "Are you ready?" I lifted my cup, let the steam wash over my face, and said, "I think so." She asked careful questions, working through the timeline, the party itself, the immediate aftermath, the long stretch of cold silence, and then the slow, unexpected thaw. I spoke slowly, pausing now and then to find the right words, and she waited patiently, jotting occasional notes. When I reached the part about finding Lily at the cemetery, my voice dropped without my meaning it to, and she pushed a tissue across the table without interrupting. The interview lasted nearly 2 hours. By the time we finished, the sky outside had darkened, and the cafe's warm amber lights had come on, casting our shadows long against the wall. Ms. Williams switched off the recorder, closed her notebook, and said, with real warmth, "Thank you for sharing this. Most people can't bear to look back at their wounds. You not only look back, you let others walk the path with you. That takes a rare kind of courage." I smiled and said nothing. She packed up her things, and I stood to leave. At the door, she turned and added, almost as an afterthought, "You remember that comment on the video? The one that said, 'I went to school with the older sister'? I remember some of them. That was my colleague. She saw the video and felt terrible. She said she wished she'd helped you back then. She asked me to tell you she's glad you're doing better now." I stood on the cafe steps, the cool night air brushing my face, carrying the sweet scent of roasting chestnuts from a stall down the street. I nodded. "Tell her thank you for me." On the tube home, I leaned against the window and watched the tunnel lights streak past. My phone buzzed. "Lily, how did the interview go?" I typed back, "Fine. The piece should run next week. She replied instantly with a thumbs up, then added, Mum made braised beef tonight. Coming home for dinner? I stared at the message, a smile tugging at my mouth. On my way. When I came up from the station, the streetlights were steady and warm. I walked the familiar route home, the glow of our front porch coming into view, my mother's silhouette moving behind the kitchen window, the faint clatter of a spatula against the pan. I quickened my pace. The feature ran in mid-November. It wasn't long, but Ms. Williams had written it with careful restraint and genuine empathy. She placed my story under the theme of family reconciliation, using a pseudonym and altering a few details for privacy. The final line quoted me, "Some wounds never fully heal, but you learn to live alongside them, and you keep moving forward." The day it was published, I sent the link to Mia, who replied with a string of crying emojis and "I'm not okay." I forwarded it to Sophie, who sent back a single word, "Good." I sent it to my father, he took a long time to reply, but eventually wrote, "Fairly written." I didn't send it to Lily, but she found it on her own, and burst into my room late that night, phone in hand, yelling, "You're in the paper." That last line, how do you come up with stuff like that? I was already half asleep, propped up on my elbows, watching her bounce on the balls of her feet. I reached out and ruffled her hair. Okay. You can be excited tomorrow. Go back to bed." She clutched her phone like a trophy, pausing at the door to throw over her shoulder, "You're really something, you know that?" Then she pulled the door shut, and her slippers padded away down the hall. I lay back down, pulled the duvet up to my chin, and stared at the ceiling. The moonlight outside was bright and silver, spreading across the floor like a thin frost. I remembered the wind at my grandmother's grave in spring, the river path with my father in summer, the envelope Lily had handed me in autumn. The seasons turned, and the days went on, steady, unhurried, carrying with them a quiet, dependable rhythm. There's still a long way to go. But I'm no longer afraid of the distance.